We believe that putting your family first is the only way to achieve a rich life, not only monetarily, but also with your relationships. I know, that may sound like a bold statement, but I was heading down the wrong path in my life, and even though I was making some good money, it never really felt right. I was giving it all to my professional goals. I lost track of my health and definitely was not showing up at home like I wanted to. I had convinced myself this was just a season, and once I got through it, then I could focus on my family. Only it kept getting worse and worse. When you're pulled in a million directions because you have a passion for helping people, it's easy to get sidetracked thinking you're doing it for the greater good. But we have a question for you. What if there was a way that you could still see massive success in your business, but doing it in a way that actually made you more connected to your family than you'd ever been before? If you're ready to explore that question with us and find your answers, let's go. It's time to redefine leadership. Welcome to Modern Leadership, where we see things differently. Our channel is all about empowering entrepreneurs like you to achieve the next level of success in business and life. We believe that you can create a massive impact in the world without compromising your personal life or family time to do so.
We're committed to providing you with actionable tips and strategies weekly to make that possible. So if you're ready to become a modern leader and make a lasting difference in the world, consider subscribing. Turn on notifications and dive into our community. We want to thank you for being here because the world needs your leadership now more than ever. Let's go.
Welcome back. So today, we really want to break down this idea of having a family-first life. Now, whenever we like to tackle certain subjects, especially ones like this that are really deeply meaningful and important to us, we like to hit it on two different angles. And first has a lot to do with mindset. It's really the why behind it, right? It's what helps us be consistent. And the second part is the tactics, like what can you put in place if you find that this is important and meaningful to you? So let's talk about both of those things. First, starting off with the mindset. So the first question I have is, why is living a family-first life so important to us? What do you think?
Well, it's important to actually go back to when our careers were the most important thing for us. But then everything changed when we had kids. So for us now, family is super important. And it's something that we've been working on for a really long time.
I mean, that's a really key point. I think even some people, when they have kids, maybe they don't readjust their priorities and really think about like what is deeply important and meaningful to them. I know in the beginning, we didn't necessarily do that. Now, our son Andrew spent 73 days in the NICU. It was a very traumatic incident to be able to have our first child and then them say, hey, you can go home and get some rest and come back tomorrow to see him. And 73 days in a row, we didn't get to see him. And I think that had a lot to do with us examining where we are, right? We had really successful careers, but we were like, we really want to connect to our family on a different level. Like I kind of felt like I let him down because I wasn't not only the health that I am in now, but also like I hadn't created that financial security with our business to be able to leave my job because being a police officer, I had to be there 24/7, missing a lot of different things. And I feel like that adjustment to reprioritize what we know is deeply important and meaningful to us was something that we had to go through and hit that rock bottom. But it's also something that I think that everybody needs to ask themselves, like, have they actually sat down and identified their important priorities right now? So we actually want to pass this one back to you guys. And that is like, we would love to hear, like, have you examined your priorities and what is most important and meaningful to you? And if you have discovered, like how we have, that family first is the main way that you want to lead your life, why is that so important and meaningful to you? Now, here's the thing. We're not here to tell you what to believe or what to think or how to change your life. What we are here to do is like make you aware of some things that maybe you weren't aware of before and let you know that you don't need our permission, but you fully have our permission to change and adjust your priorities as you grow, because this is really what life is all about.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, because this is probably something that people are thinking right now is, how do you define success both in your family life and your business life?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And it's one that we attack a lot when it comes to like the people that we coach, because this is where I was messing it up in the beginning, is I had them being on two separate paths. One was the path of how do I grow my business substantially and make the kind of impact and income that I want to make? And also on this other side, how can I become a better father and a better husband? And I didn't have them overlapping. And what I realized is that when you ask yourself, how can I excel at both? How could the fact that I'm excelling at one when it comes to my business actually make me closer to my family? How could the fact that being closer to my family could actually make me excel in business? And when I started to overlap those things, which is why I always ask my clients to set both personal and professional goals that are tied together, I realized that it now had a filter. My brain had a filter to be able to look is this a good idea? Is this something that's in alignment with my business goals and my family? Or does it kind of like distract from one of these? And it was so much easier to say yes and no to the right or wrong things. Okay, now I want to ask you a tough question. And that is, can you share an example of maybe when you weren't living in alignment with this and kind of like how that was showing up for you in life?
Yeah, I think back to when I was working full time, and sometimes I had to actually travel out of state. And those were the times when I really kind of felt that guilt, that mom guilt, because I was away from my kids, I was away from you. And then I also had to realize that when I was gone, a lot of the pressure and a lot of the responsibility would fall on Mark. So those were the times when I really didn't feel in alignment with what I really wanted. And I really wanted to just be with my kids and like spend time with them and not miss out on so much.
Yeah. Now, as you say that, like I have this memory. It was a memory back when I was working full time and you did go out of town. And I remember telling everybody at work, like, hey, like it's going to be me. Like I'm going to be the dad at home and Teresa's going to be out of town. And I remember everybody going, what? Like, how are you going to do that? Are you going to get your mom involved? Are you going to get a babysitter? And I remember like thinking about that, like, this is so weird. Like I'm hanging around with people who they say they value family, but they're like not willing to even step up and like be the father figure who's going to step up and let the mom go do something. Or there's a situation where the mom is out of town and they can step up and be that person for their kids. And I remember thinking at that point, I'm like, maybe I'm hanging around with the wrong people, because it felt weird for them to even say like, oh, wow, like I would never be able to do that. Right. And I'm like, no, like this is a part of me. It's so important and meaningful to me. And I think that could have potentially even been one of the sparks. It's like, no, I want something different than what I currently have.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Can you share an example of how this has helped you make decisions both inside and outside of business?
Yeah, for sure. So what we were kind of talking about earlier is how can you excel at both, right? And so when I think about this, I think about business, for example. So our channel here is not like a normal business channel. We talk a lot about family connection, about creating legacy, right? About your physical and mental health. And that is something that separates us from a lot of other business people out there, right? Not that they're wrong. They're not wrong. They just do it that way. I have this really deep belief that like we need to bring them all together and work them in synergy, because then you know that you're not putting one on the back burner or sacrificing like we did for such a long time. So when I have business ideas or conversations or even like putting together content, I always think about, okay, yes, I have to hit this from the business angle, but also I need to hit this from the family angle as well, because it's what makes us, right? It makes us modern leadership. There's a million other YouTube channels out there, and they do cater to people who really want to build a huge business, and I want people to, but not at the cost of their family or their health. So really being able to solidify with that, I've had people reach out to me and go, you know, the reason why I choose to watch this channel, the reason why I choose to join the Inner Circle, to join us on whatever mission that we're on, is because you make family a priority. And so that is an important piece of the puzzle, is I want to put out based off of my values so I can find people who value those same things that I do. Now, I want to share like one of the beliefs that we have on this channel that is kind of like the pillar for everything that we talk about. And that is, we believe that you do not have to sacrifice one area of your life to see massive success in business. Now, not everybody thinks that way, but we do. And by naturally talking about it and making sure that people know that we are family first, we attract more people who are in alignment with making sure that they can see massive success in their business, but also create legendary connections at home and make sure that their health is on point. Now, we've hit this from a couple angles so far, and a lot of it has to be mindset, right? Like the reason why we're doing what we do. And we feel like it's very important for you guys to understand why it is you do what you do, because that will give you the energy that you need to be consistent and to finish what you started. Now, here comes the tactic pieces. This is like, how do I keep this work-life balance in alignment, right? Because if you don't know why you're actually doing this, it's going to be hard to stay consistent to the end. So let's dive into some of those tactics right now. So let me ask you, Miss Organized Chaos, like when you think about like some of the tactics and strategies you use around managing your time, like what are some of the best strategies that you use?
Yeah, one of the main things, and probably one of the things that I start off with when I work with my clients, is really becoming aware of how you're spending your time. Because if we don't know what we need to change, then how are we going to change it, right? So one of the things that I do, or I help other people do, is really kind of identify where they're spending their time. And that is doing a time audit or a, activities audit. And all you do is really just to jot down what it is that you're doing each and every day. And, sometimes it can be, it'll be different depending on the day, right? But it'll start to show you a pattern of where you're spending your time. And then you can figure out whether that's in alignment with what you want to accomplish.
Yeah, I love that a lot. And the reason why I do is because so many people in this space, which is kind of funny when you think about it, they give you more things to do. And it's crazy. You're like, I don't have enough time. And you're like, well, here's 14 extra things that you can do in that process. And I really love the idea of like sitting down and doing a time audit, because before you can add stuff, guess what you need to do? Remove stuff, right? So you have to be able to identify like, what are some of the things that you've been doing over and over and over again because you thought it moved the needle, but it's not moving the needle at all, right? As a matter of fact, it's kind of like taking you off course, because like they say, the more things you have on your plate, the less you do them in terms of like, not only to completion, but well, right? So if you add another thing on, it's just going to water you down in those other areas, right? So I definitely love that.
Yeah. Okay, so let me ask you, how do you set boundaries between work and family life?
All right, so the way that I do this is probably a little bit different than most. I like to think of this as a giant science experiment. And every single week, I get an opportunity to look at the science experiment that I'm putting together and see what worked, what didn't work, what adjustments I can make. And it's literally why we do our one-on-one coaching and ask those specific questions, right? It's about this process called evolution. And I look at, okay, last week, do I feel like I was in alignment with my business goals, taking the actions that I needed to take and having the energy that I needed to take? But also when it comes to my personal goals related to my health and to my family connection, was I taking the amount of actions that I want to take? And was my energy high? And based off of that, I go, oh, what would I do differently if I could do this week all over again? Now, I don't make this mean something about me or about my success or anything like that. It's just merely a science experiment saying, you know what? I can make an adjustment over here and over here. And here's the thing with this. It is like, when you are passionate about multiple things, you're going to be pulled in multiple different directions. That's why you have to have a way to check in. Some of us get so excited about business because things are just really taking off and momentum that we start to get pulled towards that because we feel great when we're in that, creating that momentum and creating more impact, right? Making more sales. But we also have to remember that we're multifaceted, right? And sometimes we need to rein that in and go, you know what? Like maybe I need to spend a little bit more time next week with my family. And that's where this like whole harmony idea comes.
Yeah, I love that because it kind of gives you a chance to pivot, right? Mm-hmm. Before it's like a year from now and then everything is kind of like crazy, right? So I love the idea of doing this weekly to like really bring you back to center, right? Asking yourself those questions so that you can realize whether or not you're still in alignment with the things that you want, and not wait for it to be too late.
Okay, on the same type of topic, like what advice would you give someone who's maybe struggling with like disconnecting from some of the work stuff to actually be able to spend more time with their family?
Yeah, I think it's all about, well, I mean, what you kind of just talked about, setting boundaries with yourself, but really about intentionality. We are, like you said, multi-passionate type people, right? A lot of people are, but we really kind of need to hone in and be present when we're doing specific things. So intentionality is key. Identifying, hey, this is work time. So I'm going to be intentional about what I do so I can make the most out of this time. And then when it's family time, then you're intentional with that as well, because you want to be present. Like you want to really make those moments special because they're going to go away very soon. Like our kids grow up so fast. I mean, we think about the age that our kids are now, and I always look back at pictures. I'm like, do I even remember this? Because it's like, wow, it went by so fast. So I think the key is really about intentionality.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I often would think that I needed more quantity when it comes to time, but in reality, I just needed some better quality. Because here's where I was. I was, sitting down on the couch, watching some TV with the kids, but my brain was thinking about the 3 different things I was going to do in my business. How I was going to like create something new with my funnel, or I had to work at LAPD the next day, thinking about like what the cases are that I was going to be doing, right? And then what's funny is like when I was at work, I was thinking about what it would be like here. And it kind of like, it watered down the type of person that I was at home, but it also watered down the type of person I was at work, right? So being intentional and being able to go, okay, physically here at work, I'm also going to be emotionally and mentally here at work. The same comes true at home. Now, there is one thing here, and that is like, when you think about like creating these boundaries, one thing I didn't talk about is you have an opportunity to set your schedule just like you do for work, but doing it for your family time and for your personal health. Like when's the last time you opened your calendar and you said, I'm going to spend time with Teresa or go on a walk with Alyssa or, play ARC with Andrew? Like if just as important as a business meeting, the meeting with your family, the meeting with yourself, the meeting on Sunday, maybe to go over everything that's like been happening this week and make adjustments, right? So being intentional with setting your time and making sure that you're not only doing it for business or for work, but also for your family just shows you and them that they're just as important, if not more.
I love that. And I know there's a quote somewhere that says that if it's on your calendar, it means it's important, right? So if you show somebody your calendar, they can see what's important for you.
Now, you may be like us, and that is you want to make a huge impact with your family, but also want to make a huge impact in the world. But how do you do that? Don't worry, we've got you covered. Tap the screen to watch this next video. Creating a legacy they remember forever. Thank you for being here, Modern Leader. And above all, keep leading from the front.